If you're looking for what to build next, then this is the place to be. Stop scrolling. Greg Isenberg, absolute beast on X, dropped the clearest maps of the biggest opportunities right now in the AI space, and it's pure signal. I'm going to walk you through all 26 of them, not just list them. I'm going to give you and tell you why each one matters, where the real money is, and how the window is still open. So by the end of this video, you'll have more high conviction directions than most people get in a year of kind of brainstorming. All right, let's go and get into it. So Greg's core thesis is simple. AI is flooding everything. That creates massive new demand in specific places. Loneliness, judgment, physical world, aging, trust, distribution, and the human backlash. I find the loneliness economy particularly fascinating. Most people are still building another chatbot wrapper, but the smart ones are building the things around AI that people actually need. So here's the 26. Let's get into them. Okay, so number one is building for solving loneliness. So the more AI fills our feeds and our inboxes, basically the more people will pay for real human connection. So IRL and small group social. Think micro communities, intentional dinners, accountability circles, local clubs that actually meet, digital tools that get people offline and win together. So this is a fascinating area. You can see the rise of eco resorts booming across particularly US and Western Europe over the last year or so. A lot of people really kind of embracing that feel to go offline. A lot of people in the corporate world obviously leaving, corporate for the need to feel reconnected. And obviously there's so many people who now work remotely that the urgency around kind of eliminating the loneliness thing is a big factor. A lot of people thought that co-working would kind of solve that, but it definitely doesn't seem to. And I think that's why you'll see a huge increase in things like mastermind dinners, friends groups. You see companies like Time Left, which throw together, random strangers into a dinner club. Huge boom in running clubs. I mean, everybody seems to be part of a running club recently. Influencers and creators running their own running clubs, celebrities, athletes even doing them. So again, the need for solving this loneliness piece is huge. Even you could argue like the rise of OnlyFans is basically a testament to the fact that the loneliness economy is so profound and so real. All right, let's keep moving on. So number two is build for agents that need to spend money. So this is really interesting. So AI agents are getting virtual cards, credit cards essentially, and budgets. So someone has to build the spend controls, the fraud protection, the receipt systems, and approval workflows basically. This is infrastructure that every agent platform will need. This is super interesting. A lot of people are kind of taking a bet that crypto will be obviously the payment usage rails, or rather the blockchain will be the rails, and these agents will pay with USDT or USDC. So there's a race also from the stable coins to become the global go-to for essentially agents in terms of the payments that we're all going to pre-authorize. But having agents go on your behalf when you send a quick voice note into ChatGPT saying, hey, book me a weekend away in Rome in 2 weeks time, book me flights from New York, get it solved, access on the card, and it's already approved. That's when the agent will go and do that for you. Fascinating. So it'll be interesting to see who builds that infrastructure. All right, number three is build for people drowning in AI output. So everyone can generate infinite drafts now, basically. The bottleneck moved to reviewing and choosing. Actually, and we've all also within that, we've all kind of lost the ability to want to go back and review because of the fact that we're getting material so fast from AI that we don't really want to spend the time to sit down and have to go through it thoroughly. So things like ranking critique, decision tools that help humans essentially pick the good stuff fast. That is going to be essentially the next layer on top of the production of the draft with AI. That's going to be fascinating. And that's also why it's really interesting and important to understand using different cost tools for different things. For the most part, for a workflow, try to use the most expensive tool to build the architecture, but then for the grunt work, go to the lower cost or even the free tools. That's why you'll see a lot of people who will build with, let's say, ChatGPT, or they might build, let's say, with Claude Fable 5, but they'll actually execute using something like Kimi or even DeepSeek or any of the free or lower cost Chinese AI tools. All right, moving forward, build for the burnout economy. So everyone is expected to always be on and optimizing. The backlash towards rest basically and slowness and quote enough is building. So products that protect attention, force recovery, or celebrate doing less will find a hungry audience. This is really interesting. You see the rise of people buying the €1 homes in Italy, a lot of Americans relocating to Europe for what they feel like is a slower lifestyle. There's a big embracing of the slower form of living. It somewhat ties back to the loneliness economy, but a lot of people are lost in terms of their sense of burnout, but also, let's say, a sense of purpose, because maybe historically we maybe had less options, and therefore, survival and purpose nearly just became one and the same. But as we go through and have gone through, a lot of people have gone through, let's say, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you could argue that the more options that we have, the less satisfied we are, because of the sense of it's hard to pick where to put your focus and therefore where to have intention. If you're just trying to survive, it's pretty clear you've got this big internal primal signal to actually just survive, to get through things, and that will make you feel satisfied because of the fact that you're achieving that. But once we've achieved kind of survival, then we have an endless encyclopedia of options, and in the era with which we live in, we don't have the neural capability to be able to understand all of these options, and also just to be able to eliminate the shiny object syndrome. So that being said, there's so many people who are essentially feeling burnt out and therefore are looking for something to move towards. So a really interesting area, the burnout economy, and building towards that. So next up is building for verifying humans. So deep fakes essentially broke trust. Every dating app, marketplace, and video call is going to need proof of human within 2 years. So whoever solves kind of a lightweight, privacy respecting human verification owns a critical layer. So one interesting kind of nearly humorous thing that is popping up a lot online recently is like this concept of, in the Nordics especially, where equilibrium between the genders has been, super progressive over the years, that already people are nearly seeking like a verified signature when they might, let's say, connect romantically. It's interesting to see where that whole play will go. And, that's, kind of a obviously very serious point, but also there's, you see it played out in humor on memes these days, and just the concept of meeting someone in a bar and kind of having a kiss and maybe spending a night together is just essentially eliminated because of the cold, callous nature of needing to essentially verify that this is approved. But obviously a very serious point. But coming back to the video concept, or let's say the deep fake concept, the idea that we'll have to verify who we're truly speaking to and verify that actually, this photograph is real. I guess that also ties in with the blockchain. This is an interesting, connection between the two worlds of the blockchain world and the AI space. So number 6, let's keep moving forward. So build for the physical world. So trades, hardware, robots, AI is finally reaching the real world, essentially. Tools that help plumbers, electricians, contractors, and small manufacturers using AI without becoming software companies. I had a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who runs a very successful construction company in London, and he was talking just exactly around that he's hiring young, hungry guys who have AI experience, who've grown up essentially AI native, who realize that their future is better put towards becoming physically capable and blending that with AI, rather than just simply relying upon becoming a knowledge worker like everybody did over the last 30 years. All right, number 7, build for the agent that answers the phone. So every local business essentially misses calls after 5 p.m. For example, a voice agent that books the job is worth $1,000 a month to them, so thousands rather to them. So this is pure, boring, high margin software for the real economy. I mean, a lot of us have kind of seen this already. I've got a very close friend who's working in hotels and supplies a service to hotels where essentially the whole booking process is done using AI. So this is nearly, more or less already active. Number 8, build for the aging. So 70 million plus boomers who want to stay healthy, sharp, and connected in the US alone. So products to help them live independently, longer, manage their health, stay social, and feel capable. That is a huge opportunity. Again, it ties in with the physical space stuff, but like looking after a very healthy but aging population who are in their 70s, who don't necessarily care to continue working. They've made their money, but they want to enjoy their life. I think that's, one of the reasons, for example, why pickleball exploded in the US over the last couple of years, because you have that. Now, in fairness, pickleball has been proven that it's on a decline, because actually it's leading to like that kind of age group are tipping over into the mid 70s and they're less active. But the point is, retirement home, retirement communities, retirement vacation villages, like really just embracing a multifaceted existence post 70, where the idea of continuing to learn afresh, like offering music lessons, language lessons, all of these things, travel experiences to 70 plus is going to be a huge opportunity. All right, number 9, build for LLM search land grab. So being the cited answer essentially is the new SEO. So optimizing for AI search engines the way people used to optimize for Google. So first mover advantage is real right now. You can see all of the SEO agencies are pivoting massively to become cited agencies, essentially making sure that they are cited in the likes of ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, etc. when you search for something. Okay, number 10, so build for the newly automated. So the paralegal, the analyst, the marketer whose job just changed and needs to reskill fast. So training, tooling, and career transition products for people whose work is being rewritten by AI. A lot of people are going to go under a career transition over the next couple of years. A big opportunity there. Number 11, build for the seat pricing collapse. So software is moving from $50 a seat to essentially a per outcome kind of charge. So whoever nails outcome-based billing wins a whole category. So pricing infrastructure and measurement tools are wide open. Number 12, build for AI enablement. So 95% of businesses still use nothing beyond ChatGPT, and at that, they're using it from a search perspective, essentially. They're not even using the workflows, no automations, not codecs, not voice chat, not any of it, not even using memory, essentially. So done for you, set up training and ongoing AI operations for normal companies. I have a buddy of mine who runs a hedge fund, believe it or not, and he's pivoted his whole 30-person team towards delivering this. And it sounds so rudimentary. It sounds like, hey, this is something that a 15-year-old could set up, from their home basement. But he knows that if he repivots and repurposes 30 serious staff members, senior team members who understand the heavy lifting world of hedge funds, and they apply that professionalism to offer AI as a service to specific niches, for example, like lawyers or like premium real estate companies in the UK, then the outcome is going to be amazing, because it seems like anyway, a lot of the folks who are offering this service at the moment are typically just, they're super young and they don't have much professional experience. So he's kind of going into some area. It's kind of like someone with crazy experience going in and starting a social media agency. You might think it's kind of beneath them, or they would go into something where the barrier to entry is higher, but actually he's using his experience as a massive differentiator. And I think that's the amazing part of bringing your experience into the world of AI today and seeing what you can do with it. Let's keep rolling on, okay? Number 13, so build for the agency that everyone resents. So businesses pay $1,000 a month to agencies essentially that they dislike, they hate. An agent that does 80% of the work undercuts the entire model. That is pure disruption. That's a very simple one. Okay. Number 14, catch your breath. We're rolling through them. All right, build for verticals stuck on 2011 software. So things like dentists, HOAs, contractors, all overdue for a massive AI native rebuild. So taking an old industry, construction as well, small construction companies with less than 50 staff, give it a modern software or even just AI implementation that actually understands the workflow. That is a huge, simple, easy way to activate your basic knowledge. Even if you have minimal knowledge, you could target construction companies in your local area, across the US, across the UK, across Australia, New Zealand, anywhere, Canada, you name it, any country this can apply. And over the course of what you could learn in a weekend, you could implement into a company and be charging thousands of dollars a month. Genuinely, that opportunity exists. It's crazy, the opportunity right now. All right, 15 is build for reviving dead software. So thousands of abandoned apps have real users. Agents can maintain what a team couldn't, buy and revive what is a legitimate strategy again. So if you look at the Italian company whose name I just cannot think of right this second, they've got a pretty boring name and an amazing business. They're booming. They're buying products like Vimeo, etc., all of the historic software that we all used to use, and they're doing incredible work with it. So an amazing company, but just mimicking their strategy on a local level can potentially work. 16, build for markets too small to matter before. So essentially 500 lobster fishermen was never worth a team. Now it's a weekend project and a real business. What I mean is these tiny niche verticals, for example, with high willingness to pay are suddenly viable. So go super niche if you're offering a service AI. Like the construction thing I mentioned, go even more deep. Go for construction in a specific region, or go for construction towards a specific aspect of that. Could be attic renovations, could be something super specific. Number 17, build for agents hiring agents. So a shadow economy is essentially forming. That needs escrow, reputation systems, and dispute resolution for machines. So infrastructure for agent to agent economy is going to be a big, big opportunity. 18, all right. Oh, got to get the breaths in here. We're going fast. Build for the anti-AI premium. So as everything gets generated, human made and analog becomes essentially status symbols. So people will pay for the real thing. Authenticity is the new luxury. I think this ties back into, the events, the IRL. Authenticity is going to play a huge factor. Getting people together in real world events, dinners, things like that are going to be massive. Number 19, build for disruption first. So anyone can build a product now. The audience essentially is the moat. Media company first, product second, own the attention, then sell into it. That's why I always recommend, if you're building a product, work with an influencer, work with a creator, get them on board fully, get them behind the product. Don't just make them, don't sponsor them, make them equity owners, build it together, get them in the mix with you as the COO or COO or whatever it is, and then you've got the audience and together you can win. Number 20, build for the reinvention of college. So what does an MBA even mean anymore? New forms of credentialing, learning and career signaling are wide open. The university space is going to undergo an incredible revolution over the next couple of years. It's already happening. A lot of people are rejecting traditional education. Build for a world with more free time. So if AI really takes the busy work, the question becomes what people do with the hours. That's a civilization size market. Hobbies meaning community creation. So if you look at the likes of the company behind the WWE, the company behind the UFC, like the tier companies above that, Live Nation, they are investing so heavily in live events because ultimately they realize that the likelihood of a 4-day work week is closer than ever before. I mean, this has been mooted, it's been thrown around as kind of a luxury, but now it's genuinely plausible and it's likely, and that is going to open up crazy opportunities because people are going to have more open time, they're going to have more interest in exploring events, etc., that were off limits to them before. And a recent study showed that one of the biggest entertainment niches that has the likelihood to undergo huge growth in the next couple of years, believe it or not, is Formula One. I mean, Formula One back in the 90s and 2000s was pretty boring. People weren't really interested. But if you look at the combination of the virality of the Netflix documentary, plus the fact that there's such a hunger, such a deep primal hunger for in real world IRL experiences, and then you combine that with something that is time-based. This is the thing as well, that Formula One is so strictly time-based that there's a crazy demand for it, and there's the ability to travel as well, to follow the actual events. All right, 22. So build for the return to physical. So screens filled with slop. People crave the real world, hands-on, local, analog experience of products that pull people offline. Okay, you can see a pattern here from Greg. A lot of it is going back to this IRL. This is the chance. Build for number 23. Build for the caregiving waves. The population is aging fast. Tens of millions of people caring for parents with almost no support. So tools, community and services that ease the burden. So obviously we spoke earlier about, the 70 plus year old kind of opportunity and all of the areas around that are massively, underserviced. But what you have to bear in mind is there's parents, there's people in their 30s, 40s, who might have a busy career, they might have 2-3 kids, and they also might have aging parents. The need for them to be supported is bigger than ever because the likelihood that they don't live near their parents or don't live as part of a community is extremely high. What I mean by that is most people don't live these days where they grew up. They live away from where they grew up, and therefore they're not surrounded by family, and they don't, elders don't just get kind of wrapped up into the community and looked after. So what you have is you've got a lot of busy young professionals who are essentially juggling both being parents and juggling caring for their parents, and the support structures needed for them are super high. All right, 24, we're coming towards the end here. Build for the longevity shift. So people want to live to 100 healthily. A whole industry is forming around actively managing your own biology. So diagnostics, protocols, coaching, tracking. I mean, we can see the boom in peptides. We can see the boom in blood work. It's becoming so normalized now to understand your blood work. I hear guys all the time talking about understanding their testosterone levels. There's more and more awareness, for example, around females of, PCOS, all those kind of things, like just the general physical awareness, but also then branching that forward towards the awareness around aging is going to be a super interesting concept. Okay, 25. So build for the housing and ruthlessness, not ruthless in the tough sense, but the lack of roots, shall we say, that people basically have. So people can't afford to settle down in many cities. So the whole idea of a stable home base is now up for grabs. So new models of living, communities in place. So we see that a lot with co-living now becoming a serious thing. We even see the adaptation of certain hotels into kind of being co-living and co-working, but that is being branched out into genuine living spaces. This I find fascinating, like apartment blocks that are essentially kind of set up like a co-working space with, with gyms, with gym classes, with a cafe downstairs, with open kitchen space on certain floors, kind of semi-hostel, premium, but hotel style, and then also accommodation, kind of an unusual mix of like a service-based hotel that also has a hybrid hostel, but also has premium gyms, also has, amazing coffee and a community kind of space in the lobby, and then event space as well, family gathering spaces for, christenings, communings, bar mitzvahs, you name it, whatever it is. Like, this is the fascinating future of living. That's where people will build their communities, in this space, because with so many people working online, and let's say someone who's super busy online, they're building a business or in a busy career, they don't have necessarily the time to go to the Formula One in Bahrain or to wherever, in the sense of the example earlier, but what they're craving is just the ability to bump up against people on a day-to-day basis and have that community, and that deep primordial hunger is there, and that is going to entirely adapt the way that building is done, because also combining that with the factor of it's so expensive to buy apartments in many tier 1 Western cities, that is now creating kind of a major opportunity. All right, number 26, we've made it through. So build for spiritual hunger. As institutions hollow out, the need for meaning, ritual and belonging is exploding into new forms. This one is deep and long term. I mean, this is fascinating. If we look at, for example, the collapse of certain forms of Christianity in certain jurisdictions, and just the general kind of apathy towards religion over the last 50 years, a lot of people, there's a lot of interesting things going on. For the most part, a lot of people have kind of moved away from religion. We know that that's not new, that's not fresh news per se. But within that, there also has been certain spikes. I think, for example, in the US, the Greek Orthodox Church has undergone a huge growth spurt over the last couple of years. I think, for example, you look at the Catholic Church and some of the absolute horror stories that came through the institutions within that. Obviously, that led to a huge demise. A lot of people, in, let's say, Western Europe, for example, moving away from Catholicism, and that then leaves a huge dearth, a huge opportunity, and a huge kind of spiritual gap. What it also leaves is, a huge gap around people who would have had a community ritual. They might have gone to church every week, or the synagogue every week, or the mosque every week, but they no longer go, and they don't bump up against people, and they don't build a friend and social network, and also they don't have the ability to move to another city and then immediately plug into a system. As in, for example, you're super into your religion. Imagine you're, Church of England Protestant, and you move to the US and you find the nearest plausible kind of church that suits what you're into. You're Anglican, for example, and then you go to that church, you start to make friends, you go every week, you're satisfying your kind of craving for community, but you're also satisfying, let's say, your spiritual itch, if that's your chosen flavor, shall we say, of religion. The point is that this gap is now, it's not a fresh gap. It's not like the pressure when you've had a routine for so many years and all of a sudden you don't have to go. It's like, for example, you've been going to school for years. The first year you don't have to go to school. It feels like, oh my God, the weight's off. 10 years after, you're kind of, potentially people are craving the routine. You get the bad analogy. The point is there's a deep hunger there from both a functional standpoint, like meeting people, and then also from a spiritual standpoint, which is, it's been around human history. As much as we're in the AI space these days, it hasn't changed the kind of primal need for us to feel connected to something beyond just the physical, tangible. Okay, so notice the pattern here. Almost every one of these is either essentially solving a human problem that AI made worse, or building the boring infrastructure that AI actually needs, or serving the physical, aging, local, or anti-AI world that most tech people ignore. So you don't need to reinvent a brand new category. You just need to pick one of these and essentially go deep. So pick the one that makes you slightly uncomfortable, because if it feels too real or unsexy, then that's usually the one with the least competition. Honestly, like the ones that seem unsexy have crazy potential. So Greg ends with keep building. That's the whole message. An amazing list from Greg Isenberg. Can't recommend enough to check him out if you haven't already. If one of these hits you, don't overthink it. Open up a doc, write the problem in one sentence, talk to Claude, talk to ChatGPT, build it out, talk to 5 people around the concept this week, flesh it out, see what the feedback is. I would highly recommend you keep going. So if you were to pick which of these 26 would you go for? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Obviously, the channel is building. I would love to interact with you and see what your thoughts are. I have some strong feelings around some of these, but I would love to get your feeling and continue the discussion from there.